The oral tradition of Africa is that words and sounds are some of the primary building blocks of reality. Without words, nothing happens. Words cause action. Words cause things to get going. So I can stand up here all day and look at you, and there's no thought transferred. There's no information transferred. We primarily know ourselves and each other through words. Words are the foundation of epistemology. We use words to know and express what we know about ourselves and the world. This is very important. The Europeans use this on us all the time. The oral tradition of Africa, words are one of the primary building blocks of reality. You say, how? Along with the five senses, the individual interacts with the physical world with their mind. This is accomplished by way of concepts. Concepts are ideas about something. Some concept or belief is at the root of all action. Words are the primary methods that humans have developed to convey concepts, feelings, and emotions to ourselves and each other. And the words we use, we have to realize from an African worldview, your words, they literally make you. The words you use to conceptualize the world and to communicate that conceptualization to yourself and other people is based in words. One of the biggest problems we have as African-centered scholars is we're using European words and concepts to understand ourselves. That's a big problem. We have to look at words. Words are a container. Words are cultural containers. Each word comes out of and exists within a cultural context. So that we have to start to look at words as containers. Words are containers and conveyors of concepts. When we look at the word God, this is one of the easiest words to use to understand what I mean by words as being a conveyors of concepts, and that the container is shaped by the culture. So we take the word God. Now, all of us growing up in Western cultures have a certain conceptualization of what we think and believe God to be. One of the problems we have is, as African-centered scholars, is using these cultural specific terms in a universal manner. So we use the term God as if everybody has a God. When you study other languages, you see that translation is not word substitution. It's understanding concepts. Let's compare the concept of God and nature to see if these concepts are equal. We have the concept of nature. Based upon the meta-nature text, all words are divine. Everything is divine. When you look at their language, they use man-made objects as natural objects, so that would show that they saw everything as divine. So when you look at this, the first cup, the first container of nature, it has humans, rocks, birds, everything is in it. Even doo-doo would be in that cup because that's divine. Every existence is a divine experience. So that means everything in it is spiritual or divine. But when we look at God, we know that, hold up, birds and humans are not God, because God stands above these things. So in terms of a concept, God and nature are not interchangeable. So that when we use the word God, we are talking from a European standpoint. When we start to understand and use African language, we'll see that it gives us a broader conceptualization of the world, so that the concept of nature makes everything divine. So that would mean that everything would be, using a Western term, everything would represent God. There would be no act or thing that could not be God, if we're using a Western word to try to make us understand an African concept. An African understanding of words is that words are real. Words make reality concrete. So, in Western culture, a popular saying is that you are what you eat. This is true. However, food is only one component of the body's consumption. Certain Western culture ontological paradigms, like looking at the body as a machine, prevents us from having an understanding how abstract ideas, like our thoughts and words, affect ourselves and our reality. African cultures have belief systems that study how abstractions like thoughts and emotions have a very real effect on our bodies. From an African worldview, you are as you think. Abstractions like thought, habitual thinking patterns, and emotions have a profound effect on our bodies. So we're 90% of the time when we speak of health, we are only concerned with what we put into our mouths. The thing that you consume more than anything else, more than food, is ideas. The individual is basically a walking billboard of ideas, which he expressed through his behavior, his speech, his dress. Everything about it is based upon the beliefs you have about yourself and the world that exists around you. So because we primarily focus on what we put into our mouths as food, we overlook the importance and accurate understanding of words as having a real physical effect. We use words as abstractions. We use words as throwaway things. So that when we come to food, right, and eating healthy, this is a healthy plate. This is some of the most richest foods you can consume in terms of protein. But once again, everything has a cultural context. I don't care how rich it is in nutrition, it's a cultural thing. I don't like insects. So you see, just like words, food is the same way. The ultra different of Africa is words are one of the primary building blocks of reality. I'm going to keep saying it because it's important that we understand that. In many African cosmology, we find the use of words as speech and the devices for producing speech, the mouth and the tongue, as tools in the descriptions of how all that is comes into being. This cosmic event is described using the attributes which are possessed by each individual. We all think, feel, and talk our world into existence. And African ontological views are more superior than European ones, and I'll give you why I say that. I can understand the Big Bang Theory, and it does not help me as an individual 1 hour. It's all scientific theory. It's fine if I want to be a technician or a physicist, but an individual who's understanding how do I understand my own worldview. The Big Bang Theory does not help us 1 hour. Why? Because it cannot be applied as personal. For things to have real effect, the individual has to know, how does it make my life better? For the African, speech is a weighty matter, an ambiguous force which can make and unmake, which can be the bearer of evil. This is why the message is not articulated openly and directly in Africa. Speech is too weighty to be wasted. That quote is in a book that Kemetic edited. This quote is by Hampe Bey. And these are two Africans who I always quote, because Hampe Bey's work is important because it gives you a view of Africa based on someone who is a member of the African educational system, the ancient African educational system, or the oral traditional system of Africa. This brother is a member of that tradition. But for all the forces to which he is heir lie dumb within him. They are static till speech comes and sets them into motion. Then, vivified by the divine word, they begin to vibrate. At a very first stage, they become thoughts. At a second, sound. At a third, word. Speech, spoken words, is therefore regarded as a materialization or the externalization of vibrational forces. You say, what does that mean? Go back for a minute. Speech set things into motion. We have to realize that sound, as speech, causes form. Once again, based on our Western understanding of speech, this is something that's very hard for us to understand. Now, this unseen speech represents specific patterns in reality. Now, for the most part, we don't see these. They exist, but they're just beyond our perception. Now, some of us in there have studied something that we like to call sacred geometry, which is really visual mathematics, because mathematics are visual. The African divination system is based upon that there's an unseen structural pattern that exists to reality. This is magnetic, and it can be read. Now, this is an example I found off the internet, and it will show you how sound creates specific geometric patterns. These patterns exist all throughout reality. You can slice the body, fruit, whatever, and you will see precise geometric patterns. These represent sound that we cannot hear. Go Sound and words is organized reality. This is what the individual does. The individual, your job as an individual is to organize reality. This is what we all do. Speech is only organized reality. If I speak another language, it makes no sense to me because speech is nonsense. It's just articulated sound. Now you see this sound. It's organized. This is salt on a slate that's having electrodes that's sending energy to it. The electrodes are at the top. But you see how this is making precise geometric patterns. He's just pouring salt, and the sound itself is organizing it into precise patterns, not random. These are precise geometric patterns. They exist everywhere. They're activated by sound, and they represent sound.
This also is how atomic structure is developed.
Now, the Africans understood this. The African divination system, which exists all over the continent, is based on this fact.
Looks like mud cloth patterns.
Yeah, looks like mud cloth patterns. Yeah. Now, this is once again, this is showing you sound that we can't see. Listen.
It listens for the tiny sounds of its prey moving about below, but must take great care not to scare them away.
This is seen with your ears. Now, Africans, the people of the Nile Valley were keen observers of nature. One of the biggest problems we have is understanding Kemetic is that our understanding comes from intellectual manipulation. Theirs came from observing nature. Now, from sound, he had to judge how deep this was. Otherwise, he would have smashed his face. All for food. He heard this. So once again, this is showing you how we live in a world of sound, vibration. And our speech, our thoughts keeps us hooked into this. So what this is showing that Africans have a different way of understanding sound, words. And we can find these concepts in the Shabaka stone, 700 BC. Next slide. I'm going to go through this real fast. Next slide. The power of the mind and tongues are in the limbs. The seeing of the eyes, the hearing of the ears, the sniffing of the nose are elevated to the mind. Now this is basic physiology right there, which causes every perception to come forth. Then the tongue repeats the thoughts of the mind. As scholars, we have to use the meta-nature text. For those of us who have some background in the meta-nature, you'll recognize this form right here. This is called the Sejameth at the ready form, which lets me know that this word is a verb. These two words are verbs. This form is letting me know that these two verbs means to cause. So they're saying which causes every perception. In Western culture, the mind and thoughts are strictly affiliated with the brain. In Kemetic, the mind, thoughts are the whole body. This word would be the spirits which are in the front of the heart. Hati-eb. And that would be like the spirits which are in the front of the heart. So they're showing you right there that the mind is associated with the heart. Whereas in this society, there's a natural dichotomy between the heart and the head. It don't exist. That's a culture, once again, that's us taking a cultural understanding and making it universal. But we can see from this culture that here thoughts are associated with the heart, with the body. Next slide. So all the creative forces are born. Atum and his primeval powers, and all divine speech happens in the mind. But this is showing you also that there's an order. Things happen in the mind first. The mind is primary.